Your brain is the world's greatest archivist. It decides what to save, what to discard, and what to replay. But you know what the surprise is that it may not always save the truth, but it does save the meaning of your experiences. Welcome to It's the Good Life, your practical guide to adulting. I'm Josh. This is Anthony and David, and today we are talking about memories.
Ooh.
Memories. Or as my friend Jenna in high school used to call them, the mems.
Jenna.
Yeah, Jenna. She was like, "Let's make some memes."
Let's make some memes.
That's a cute way.
It is, yeah. It's super fun.
Sounds almost like you could just go about making memories, like out of the blue.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
you're intentionally setting out to make memories.
Yeah, I think that was the good attitude that, especially in high school, where it's like it's all about making those core memories. Like,
core memories. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go make the memes. I didn't even think about making a relationship to Inside Out in this episode.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
But for the future,
So much to get into.
so just a good opening question that it was like the first thing I thought of when I was trying to do some research into memories, was like this association with smells, with memories. At least for me, like as a kid, I remember, at least in like Chinese dishes, I always have very distinct and like pungent smells.
Yeah.
So like anytime that my dad or my relatives make a dish that like I used to have as a kid, like it feels like that scene from Ratatouille, you know, where like he like gets like thrown back to being a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Having like two things at once.
Yeah. No. The scene where it's like the critic has the Ratatouille and he like gets like thrown back to
Goes
his
back
childhood.
to childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's kind of like the exact experience I get. So what are some like smells that just bring you back 2 decades all of a sudden, instantly?
Dude, I can go.
Go ahead.
Dude, I got 2 smells.
Hit it.
2 smells.
Okay.
Not just one, but 2.
The first smell that I have it's peach Bellini. It's
What
like
is that?
if you go to like Bath and Body Works or something, like they have that scent for either like a candle or like a soap or something. But it takes me all the way back to childhood, and I think it, like fondly, it's something to do with like koi fish in a pond, or like just childhood unlocking a lot of those memories, like something to do with that. It's interesting. Yeah.
Huh.
It's this very like sweet, fruity smell, but it just specifically draws back like, okay, you're an adult, but like you're coming back all the way to childhood now. And I'm like, wow, what's going on right now?
That's trippy. It's a
really
trippy feeling to like exist in the present, but also in the past at the same time.
At the same time, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one would be, I guess the general question I can pose is for me, I know what a sneeze smells like, and it's disgusting.
Like you
smells
sneezing?
like?
No, like not
Like
me
someone sneezing
like,
into your face?
Well, I've had that happen before, but
brutal.
I know like if no one had sneezed within like the past 10 minutes, but there's people around, I know that someone had sneezed like within the past 30 minutes or something when I wasn't
Like
here.
you can feel in the air?
Oh, I can smell it in the air.
What?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's
I don't
crazy.
know, like,
Superpower.
yeah, it takes me back, and I'm like,
That takes you
man.
back? That brings you back? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, sneeze.
So are we talking
and
more like family brings you back, or just in general?
anything.
Anything. Oh.
Anything. It could be the dirt of the ground at a playground.
Man, well, I
Probably
think it's
wood
safe to say for me, like the hospital has a pretty distinct smell to it, especially when you're dealing with a lot of like, you know, more ancient folks, and you know they got a little more time on this earth. Got a little more.
That was such a gentle way of putting it.
More experienced folks, patients, they tend to have this like certain smell
I think
that
I
goes
know.
along with their skin's like flakiness, and
It's part of the package deal.
it's just like when you go in, there's this like pungent like all right, we're here. You know, it's like you walk into it and you hit this like wall.
Yeah.
That would be the first smell. Yeah, but I think in terms of like going back home, smells that remind. There's this certain sunscreen that I used to use when I was a kid in the summers, and it was this roll-on sunscreen that it would. For me, like every time I smelled it, I knew it was summer because we would only use like sunscreen in the summer kind of thing. So it was this like very distinct sweet orange marmalades kind of smell.
Wow.
But it like always brings me back. I haven't smelled it in a while, but it's somewhere in my house. It's just like a whiff of that, just like it's straight dopamine for me. It's like, ooh.
Dopamine. Hey now.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it brings me back to like the summers when I was a child.
So
What about
interesting.
you? Do you have one?
Me? No, it's actually really interesting. I think maybe even like another thing too is like sounds.
Yes.
So like Velcro in my mind is like I used to have like those Velcro like shoes and that, like you know, like I can't even
Yeah.
mimic it as well. I think for me there's one particular dish called, I'm gonna totally butcher the pronunciation, I'm sorry. It's called fumoy.
Okay.
And it uses like, it's like a pork based dish with like this fermented bean curds as part of like the paste that makes the sauce.
Yeah.
And it's like it's pretty indistinguishable like as a scent. And it's just brings you back. Just like right, like literally back to like moments as a kid, having that as a for dinner. But it's interesting that you mentioned the hospital because I definitely relate. I think C. diff is the one that gets me every time. Yeah, every time. Like it's a particular type of bacteria that has a very distinct smell. Like if a patient is working with that bacteria, you know exactly what you're getting into.
Oh gosh.
And it's something interesting about like this barrier of like I know exactly, like you open the door and it's like you're fine, and then you walk through that barrier and you're like, you are in it. You're in it and around it and through it, and you're just living in it.
Well, it's two masks and some toothpaste in the middle.
I don't do that, bro.
That gets you through those.
You do that?
I do.
What?
You do what you have to do.
Dude, no, I just go. I go cold turkey.
At this point now, I just raw dog it. You know? But back
Like no mask and no brushing teeth. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well it depends on like, you know, if they have a like tuberculosis or something. But
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if it's just like it's like just walk in.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. That's my vibe.
Awesome.
But moving beyond sort of the initial memories that you have, I think one thing that I really want to get into, and this is kind of a big part of why I chose to talk about memories, is like why our brain decides to keep certain memories over others. You know, so like David and I were talking before the episode, and it's like, why can't I remember my first breakup like it was yesterday, but I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's like this relationship between strong emotions, or at least even like the amount of emotions that you're having, as well as like the memory that you're having associated with those emotions. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like any of us are not unfamiliar with those sort of experiences, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's like, it's almost like similar to like the dopamine episode. I feel like there's that emotional intensity that allows you to tie that in with a memory, and that's why it sticks with you a lot longer. So I think of some playground memories back when I was a child where we would play like kitchen, and we'd like play with like family, right? And be like, oh yeah, you're the mom, and then you're the son.
I remember that.
And then, you know, you'd play along, and it's like, okay, this feels great, because it, you know, it makes the interesting dynamic of them being your friends but your family now all of a sudden, and then you just have fun with that, and maybe it's more of a family that you actually enjoy, you know. And that can look different for everyone, obviously, but I think I remember that very fondly. I had a great time being able to experience just having a lot of fun aside from a lot of the stressful family works, but I think that's a big thing to it, is like the emotional connection.
It's interesting too, because I think commonly when we're talking about like memories, especially the ones that are more memorable because of emotions, it's usually like a negative connotation of like, oh, it's a breakup, or like it's a family member who passed away, or something like more tragic and maybe even traumatic per se. But there's also something to be said, like you said, of good memories, like really fond memories that you remember distinctly because of how fond they were, you know? So like even you at what was like preschool age?
Yeah,
kindergarten,
kindergarten around
yeah,
there.
you know, it's like you distinctly remember that because of how fond it made you feel, you know. I think it's good to bring that into the conversation too, in addition to like the other ones.
I think there's both sides to it for sure. Like there's I heard like if there are a room full like 100 people and you were to walk in and 99 of them told you like really great compliment to you on your hair or whatever it is, like said great things about you, and then that one person said like, you look horrible today, like you're gonna walk out of that room remembering what that one person said and not what the 99 other people said, right? I feel like it's also built into how our brain works, of like survival mode. Like we are so hyper fixated on sometimes like the negativity part of it that I think it's interesting talking about memories in that respect, because then like we look back at our past more so picking at those things that really bothered us rather than picking at those things that were really a positive experience. And it was interesting because I just got back from New York, and it was an extremely fun trip. And Daniel and I, who I was traveling with, at the end of the trip, he was like, what was your worst part? What was your favorite part and what was your worst part of the trip? Like kind of to debrief a little bit. And I found it so interesting that we even like have that conversation, because I was sitting there, I was thinking about it. I was like, what is my worst part? Like, I don't know. I have to kind of think hard about it because, you know, I usually just focus on like, what were the best parts of something. But getting into that mindset, I think sometimes like makes you kind of realize that like sometimes we do focus on more of the negative experience rather than the positive one. I do wonder if that plays a role in our memories and like what we hold as core memories or even just simple memories.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I was thinking kind of I think that gets into kind of a deeper conversation of two things. One is like, how reliable are your memories, you know, and we can get a little bit into that. And then also two, like the value of your perspective about your memories, right? Because I think a lot of the emotions that you tie to an experience are based on the perspective that you have of it, right? Like you see the bad versus someone else could see the good.
Yeah.
Like you guys can remember the same event differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's it. That's interesting.
Emotionally speaking,
Yeah.
and event-wise.
Are you saying like memories can be flawed in terms of like how we remember them to be?
What a
Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's
or?
exactly what
Okay,
I'm saying.
okay.
Is like
Yeah.
it not. I don't even wouldn't say the word flawed, but they're just not as reliable. I think as maybe we trust them to be. So like I was mentioning this before the episode, but there was an exercise that I did in my AP Psych class, where we were talking about memory, and this was like a really good. Shout out to Mr. Wayne, my AP Psych teacher. But this is like a really good exercise was where basically there was a clip, like a 5-minute clip that was played that had all these different events. There was like it was chronological, and we just watched the video and we just moved on. Like there wasn't really any explanation given in the video besides just watch this video. We watched it. The whole like 50-minute class went by, and the last like 5 to 10 minutes. He basically like, I'm going to split you guys into 2 groups, and you guys are going to try to attempt to recollect as detailed as possible what happened in that video that we watched 50 minutes ago, and I gave no attention to, right? And what was so interesting about that exercise was like, throughout us discussing it, there were so many conflicts between what one person said and what another person said. They're like, oh, I think the gorilla was doing this. And everyone's like, no, there wasn't a gorilla. What are you talking about? Like, there's like suddenly there's the coherency is lost, you know? And the reason I mention this story is because I think a lot of times we give way too much credit and validity to our memories as truth, right? Because when in actuality, memories are just selective, archived experiences that our brain decides and maybe doesn't decide to keep, you know? And so I think that the importance of that going into this conversation is like being able to recognize that, first of all, and then also be willing, and this is kind of a core point I want to get into, is being willing to rewrite the narrative, right? So like if you remember something that's really difficult, I think that's part of therapy and that word of unpacking is like you're trying to re-experience it in a different way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the word that comes to mind for me is like reframing almost. Because like there's nothing that you can do to really change the experience of the past. Like it's always going to be the way it is. Like if I slap you on the face right now, David, I slapped you on the face. Like it happened, you know? But whether you see that as like a love tap or as like a, man, this guy just really hates
love
me.
Tap?
It is like 2 different perspectives to take on it.
Right.
But like whether or not that happened is not really up for like debate. Like it happened, but the perspective that you hold, the perspective you hold in your way of interpreting that action is like it can be different, I think.
Yeah, the beautiful thing that I like about what we're talking about is I was just having a conversation with a friend at the park the other day, and I was like, man, this is like a movie scene. And I for me, my perspective of my persona is like I look at myself like an old man. So
Okay.
And
You
when
gotta
I'm
explain
sitting-
that one.
Yeah, basically when I'm sitting down on the park bench, like it's like a movie scene shot where it's like whoosh, like from the back, and then almost like
Okay.
Good Will Hunting kind of vibe where you know they're both sitting over here, and I'm like, I'm over here spitting quotes and like
Life is a
just
movie.
life stuff. And you know, you have like this youngin that's just like listening in
Sure.
and kind of like absorbing all the goodness. But for me, it's just amazing because in that experience, like I think about what in their perspective are they getting out of this experience as they are listening to me kind of sharing
Sure.
whatever experience or specific point of view on a specific conversation of topic. And I think when it comes to memory, that's what I want to remember a beautiful moment as, like not just entirely what my perspective is, but I think I want to honor what the other person's perspective out of that moment also is trying to get at. And yeah, I think there's so many connections that we can make, but I think beautifully having an open mind always, right? I push that allows us to kind of look at memories with, even if there was negative attachments, how there was still good in that. So
Yeah. Well, you go ahead.
Well, actually, it just brings up a question in my head. It's like, for both you guys, do you guys go into experiences with the intention of leaving a lasting memory or impression on the other person? Or do you go into that experience like with the intention of creating a memorable experience for yourself? Like what is the intention behind you going into any kind of event, any kind of situation? I'm just curious because it kind of sounds like you almost take that approach of like, oh, I want to leave a lasting impression or maybe a legacy or something behind for this person to remember me by. But I think the other perspective to hold is also like, I'm going in with this intention of like, I want to have the most fun possible and create a memory experience for myself, you know? And I feel like the way that depending on the intention you take can look differently.
Yeah. No, it's that's very interesting because it kind of goes right back to what I was saying at the beginning, where Jenna's like, let's make memes.
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's like there's this attitude of like, let's do fun stuff so that we can look back and think about these moments joyfully, right? Or happily. But then I also think that there is something to be said about memories that are spontaneous, you know, like those, I just remember so many times as a kid with my cousins messing around and doing whatever we want and like literally peeing our pants because we're laughing so hard. But it wasn't like we were going to that experience as kids being like, we're going to make good memories this week of us hanging out. Like there was just a memory. There were memories that were just made inherently, you know, like through the joy of spending time with each other, you know. But there's also something to be said, and this might get like really macro for a second. There's also something to be said about people not wanting to be forgotten, like in our culture, in our day and age, right? Like there's this pursuit of trying to leave a lasting impression, like on our culture, on our family. Like that's why I feel like being a celebrity is such a big deal, because like people won't forget me, you know. But then at the same time, it's like I feel like the most prominent people in our history are people who weren't trying to make a name for themselves, you know, unless you're Alexander Hamilton. Sorry, I've made a funny reference there, but you know what I mean. Like, so I think that both have their pros and cons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
how does that change your
absolutely.
perspective, David? Does that
I would
leave an
agree.
impression on you?
I would agree with what you said. I think wait, what are we laughing at?
sorry. Keep going.
What you said, Josh, about the lasting impact and like leaving an impression, I absolutely agree with that idea. I think like so many people in this world, they want to leave a name or a label that's like, this is who I am. And I think that's an important thing to share with the world, because you get to express the beautiful and intricate complexity of who you are as a person. But also I like to think about what Anthony was saying, where you're mentioning like, you know, like, can you still make that beautiful memory out of a moment and experience, but also, you know, is it more for you or is it for the other person? And I'm such a firm believer in that. Once again, like, I believe two things can be, you know, true at the same time. So I think one of those things would be like, when I'm going through an experience, for me, I think the preset is I want to make this person enjoy what their experience is going through. You know, even if it's an uncomfortable like space or moment, or it's a difficult conversation, I feel like I want to be the best person there to provide, you know, the most smoothest of transitions of like, okay, we're talking about this hard thing, but let's kind of digress here, or like let's find common ground. Because I never want it to be remembered once again for that negative, and it's just going to be like that core memory that's like, oh, I don't like this person because they just talked about this, but more so like it was everlasting and impact because I was able to get something from that.
I think I know what you're getting at now.
Right.
Like let's say that you were taking a test or performing in some way, right? And the experience goes horribly wrong, right? I think there's something to be said about partnering and being with people and recognizing the impact that it could have for them and standing in the gap and changing that direction, right? So like I've had like that preceptorship experience I had a while ago, right? Like I totally dropped the ball with the patient I was caring for.
Yeah.
But then the nurse could have been like, you didn't do well, you need to improve on this, and like left it at that. But she didn't. She said, you know what, this is a great opportunity to grow in this and recognize this and develop this for the future. Right? So when I look back at that experience, like, yes, my perspective on it plays a role, but the how other people responded in anticipation of how I would feel about it in the future, that makes a difference. You know, so I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is like anticipating the impact that this conversation, this moment, this experience could have on them looking back at this.
Yeah.
That's huge. I think that's absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Do we have complete control over that every time? No. Like, but when we can, is it something to step up for and advocate for? Absolutely. I think so.
And that's why I think I love the way that I look at my life as far as like being an old man in that essence, because I just picture myself like, okay, I understand that this isn't like my granddaughter or grandson, but this friend or peer or colleague that's alongside me, I want them to remember the most of what David had made from this experience because of something that I left that they were able to retrieve, or something that was nice that they were able to, you know, take in. And if it was difficult, something that was hard that they learned from that, you know, and that's kind of like that grandfather role is, you know, you kind of let them figure it out, you kind of let them go through that process. But I think that's where it comes down to perspective, right? And so it looks different for everyone. Like, are you that person that, yeah, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to make the most of it, I'm going to be fully present, I want to enjoy and make this memory like solely for me, or mainly it's focused on you, or it's like, nah, I want to be able to focus on this other person, and I want to make sure that they can remember or enjoy a memory that's something special for them, you know?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it does go back, and I hope this isn't like too circular reasoning, but it kind of goes back to like Jenna when she says like, oh, let's make memes, almost is like something that you can do at will, when I think in the aspect, in light of our conversation now, it's almost like something that you can't quite force, but it just kind of happens organically.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're just having this experience, and the memory is being created without, it's like an unsaid thing, rather than like, okay, let's create memories. Let's I don't know, go out on a hike and go backpacking, or let's take a trip out to the cafe for the intention of creating a memory.
Yeah.
Right. When in reality, it's like let's just do it, and then the memory will be created.
Yeah, the memory will happen
as a side effect.
Yeah.
Or something, if you will.
As a side effect that, but there's also no, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something I wanted to kind of pose just to transition a bit here is sort of rewriting the definition of why we have memories, right? Because I think we've talked about like what memories are, what they mean, but like, have you ever considered memory to be a survival mechanism?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think like being able to find your way back home is one example,
Right.
maybe. Being able to know who your parents are, like recognize them.
Yeah. But even more so than that, I think it helps you. I think that's why, according to my research, why the amygdala records painful memories more than joyful ones, because it's like, hey, you touched that hot pan, that was a bad memory, so don't touch that hot pan again. You know, like it's sort of part of that fear factor, right? It's like you only fear because there's like a memory associated with something being in danger or you being hurt or something like that, right?
Yeah, it definitely goes back to emotions being a big part of memories, like tying that in. But I think it does, in terms of like the aspect of learning from your memories, is a huge thing of like the harder those memories are, the more you kind of tend to remember them and not make the same mistakes again.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to say these 3 quotes for you, and just want to hear your thoughts, because it definitely struck me. You flinch during conflict because your brain memorized chaos. You over-apologize because your brain memorized rejection. You avoid risk because your brain memorized failure. That stuck out to me because it makes me realize that memory is also super inactive. Like, it's not something that we're active, like, I am remembering, like us recording this episode, you know? But there's something to be said about the experiences that we're not aware that we remember, you know? And like how those affect the way that we go about life.
One thing that comes to my mind is
Yeah.
I realize, and I think there might be some research behind it, but it's like something to do with the more intentional a person is, the more memorable they are of like a lot of things. And like they'll remember like the smallest things of like, you know, like what's your favorite color on a car? You know, that's different from like what's your favorite color, because you know, some people have preferences, right? But you know, you ask that question specifically, like, what's your favorite color on a car, on your dream car, you know, get more specific. And then you remember that, you know, you see them 10 years later, you haven't seen them in 10 years. And it's like, hey, you like this color, right? Oh, look, I got you this car. I mean, heck, that would be like amazing. But all to say, I think, is like the intentionality of a person allows, I think, memory to be something more strongly attached to the character of that person, but also the character of that environment or the atmosphere that you're trying to encompass. And I love that idea a lot. It gives me a lot of comfort to think that if someone is more intentional, that they can remember something, you know, despite if it was a difficult time or if it was something that was more easy on the transition of understanding or learning process, whatever that looks like.
I mean, I'm assuming by you saying that there are people in your life that you feel like are intentional in that way. It's interesting how you're making this correlation between intentionality and the ability for someone to remember something. But even intentionality, I feel like, is the step from memory, right? Because it's one thing for me to remember that you like bouldering. It's another thing for me to remember what level of tier you're bouldering at your rock climbing place, and to act on that and be like, hey, I'd love to go with you and see you do that, right? Like, intentionality is the act of acting on memories, you know what I mean? Rather than intentionality just being a reflection of someone's depth of memories, you know what I mean?
That actually reminds me of something that you said, Josh.
Oh boy.
In terms of my memory, is like,
I want to forget.
well, you mentioned this. I'm not sure if it's okay to share this, but you mentioned in the past, like, you actually would keep notes on certain people of like.
Oh yeah, I
things
do.
Which I actually used to do too. It's really interesting. But then you would almost use that as an intention for you to be able to bring in those kind of questions when you see that person again. It's like, oh wait, well, how was that thing that you talked about last time? Curious to ask you, actually, is that something that you still do, or is there a variant that you still keep with you in terms of like, oh, like mental note, David, you know, climbs this level, right? Like, is that something that you take into your day-to-day? Is that something that you still do? And what is that? How does that relate to your ability to kind of form memories and like create them for yourself as well as the people around you?
Well, if I'm running this by David, I do have running lists for everybody. Like for my close friends.
Yeah.
And they're like just my own stuff. Yeah. But it's like it's mostly like prominent stuff, right?
Okay.
Like this friend's going through this thing, like pray for them about this, or like they're going through this specific issue, like follow up, you know, or like. And I think for me, like, the intention of it is not to be weird, obviously, but mostly so that when I'm having a conversation, there's continuity, right? Like so, you know, you don't have, like, let's say, you know, you're going through something and you don't have to re-explain that to me. I have the history, you know, and I feel like for you, like, kind of going back to what you were talking about, right? Being on the receiving end of an experience, right? Like, there's something comforting about not having to re-explain your history to me. You know what I mean? Like you can just come into the conversation, pick up exactly where you left off, and I'm exactly right there with you. You know what I mean?
I think to take it even a little deeper too, I think something that we haven't talked about, which totally relates to the aspect of memory, is forgetfulness.
Dude, I was gonna mention that too.
Because sorry, stole it.
Forgetfulness.
Because,
Sat down.
because I think that it's okay. So this is a personal anecdote, but I think something that I've talked to you about too, Josh, is like in my past experience, something that I experienced was this almost like feeling that this other person, I guess, so to keep it simple, this other person felt like I wasn't necessarily remembering everything that happened. And in that relationship, it was like, dude, how come, like, why don't you remember this? Why don't, like, and well, the thing is, the interesting thing is that's actually caused, like, I wouldn't go so far as to say trauma, but this certain feeling that, like, every time someone mentioned something like, oh, like you forgot, it kind of leaves this like bad taste in my mouth because of this past experience that I've had with this person not like kind of almost saying that, putting a label on me that like I'm a forgetful person, right? I think the deeper under part of that, as I process it through, is that like, because we forget things, it sometimes tells people that we aren't really intentionally listening to them the first time they told us. And I think that is somewhat true. As much as we are forgetful people, I think part of being intentional is being able to remember, is being able to like really tune in to someone and know that the next time we talk, that's something that I'm going to follow up on the way you do, like, you know. And so I think it's so interesting, that correlation between memory and forgetfulness. It's such an important thing, and it's why I think I've started also more so making at least mental notes of things that people, or even journaling or writing things down, is because we forget.
I've noticed you've done that recently.
And there's things that like, you know, and I found it to be almost, and I'll end off here, is like, it's almost a superpower, because like when you start remembering things and you ask people about like a super specific moment that they talked about in the past, they're just like blown away by you, like, oh my gosh, you actually remember? Like,
or even more so, you were there. Like you
there.
were present
Yes.
in that moment.
And it's that, again, going back to the feeling that people really remember as much more than the clothes you wear, how well your eyebrows are, like what your hair looked like that day. Like you don't remember, but you remember how they made you feel.
See, so if I may loop back, the full circle that I'm seeing here is like, hey, don't smile at me like that, man. Shoot, you get me all the time. Anyways, okay, but let me just say this. Is the point that you're making is like, you know, you're talking like navigating the practical ways to kind of combat, I guess, with forgetfulness, you know, write things down, right? But I also think, like, going back to the intentionality conversation, like, depending how in-depthful and insightful you're remembering consciously about a specific person's, you know, a color that they like, or whatever it is that they're studying for, a season that they're going through, I think that shows almost in levels, right? Like how deep and intentional that relationship goes, and how much your memory is actually working. Like if you have that mental note, I think it's a really big thing to say, because, for example, when you're specifically going through your instance, Anthony, of like, you know, someone thinks that you're a forgetful person because maybe you guys had a meeting and then you're like, they were waiting for you and they're like texting you, hey, after 5 minutes of the meeting time, you're not on, like, where are you at? And you're like, oh shoot, yeah. And then, you know, there's always these excuses that come up, or reasonings. And that person, and for me, I never like that feeling of someone being so consistent with the whole forgetfulness idea. Because I think for memory wise, they're not remembering what it is that has to be, you know, met as a need or a necessity. So it just makes me think, like, what are some practical ways that we, other than like writing down, do we consistently do in our lives that allow us, navigating adulting, track memory well, or I guess the intentionality of navigating memory, but more so also maybe even combating forgetfulness.
Yeah. Did you have a note on that before?
I have a lot of notes. I got a lot of notes, but no, that's a great question, David. I think forgetfulness, and this is something I want to get into later, is like very much a work of the enemy. Like that, the enemy wants us to forget the good things and remember the bad things. You know, like there's sort of this opposing narrative, versus God is the opposite.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like practically remembering in the moment, I think it's being engaged. Like I found that the I can remember conversations better if I engage with the person I'm talking with, right? So like if you are just talking about your day, or Anthony's talking about their day, and I'm just like, yeah, cool, awesome, that sounds great, I'm glad you had a good day. Like, how much did I engage with you to like actually be able to remember that stuff? But if I said, you know, what rides did you go on? What food did you have? Oh my gosh, I've had that before. You know, there's more. Like the more I'm engaging, the more I'm also taking on with me. Like it's becoming my experience as much as it was yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think something you and David are really good at is active listening, which is this like form of listening in a way that you posturally show with your body or your language. Like it's the small things, right? As you guys kind of both know. But that as well, I think, is a part of what makes you guys both a good listeners. Is like the active part of, because if you aren't active about your listening, I could just be talking to a wall. Like it'd be the same thing.
Yeah. I'd be just as active.
But there's something about talking to someone else that has a soul, that has a mind, that has a heart, that has a body, that understands your situation in a way that maybe you don't even understand, and that they can process it in a way that you haven't yet processed yourself. So, yeah. I think that there's a lot to be said there. Yeah.
No, absolutely. No, and then I think on the more debriefing side, or I would guess actually that's actually exactly what I was going to say. Debrief. Like if there's an experience that you have or a conversation you have with someone, obviously within confidentiality, like if it's something that's more personal, like debrief that with your journal, debrief that with a person, and like that in my mind is sort of what cements like the experience, right? Because it's no longer just this one-off moment. You engaged it with the first time and then re-engaged with the same ideas a second time, you know, whether that's in the form of journaling or in a conversation with somebody else. And so I think that those are kind of the two practical ways that I tend to, I think, remember things more often than not. I don't know, do you have any different?
No, yeah, it reminds. I think that it's interesting because as I think about it a little more, it might be a tangent, but there's this movie called, I think it's called like 42 First Dates or something. It's with
50 First Dates.
50 First Dates with Adam
42
Sandler.
for 42. No, 50 First Dates. Yeah, that's a great. That's a great.
Have you guys both watched it?
I've seen it.
Okay. So it's for those of you guys who haven't. It's the premise. The plot is like, there's this girl like with just, I think she has a certain illness or something that causes her to not remember.
She was in a car accident.
Yeah.
And she basically replays the same day over and over and over again. And her family and the people who care about her are basically replaying the same day with her.
Right.
And this guy, Adam Sandler, comes into the story. Basically suddenly meets this girl and likes her, but then they go on a date and then she completely forgets. She completely restarts.
Right. And he's just there. He has to make this decision, like, do I want to have a first date every time with this girl over and over again because she's not going to remember anything that happened, or do I just move on to this girl, right? And I won't spoil it for you, but he the option he chooses causes him to have to replay memories over and over, and it's this really interesting situation that kind of makes you wonder, like, you know, the experience of something new is, I think, one gift that forgetfulness can offer.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you forget everything, then everything is a new experience for you.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you also can't forget to the extent of not even being able to remember your experiences to the extent where you can't even remember anything.
Yeah.
You can't look back at anything. So yeah.
But I think that's one of the greatest struggles of folks with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? Is like their struggle is remembering, right? But there is something to be said. This is actually something I wanted to do long before I was in nursing, was musical therapy. Just because there's a different part of your brain that accesses like your memory of music versus like your experiential memories, right? And so one of the great things I learned about musical therapy, knowing a musical therapist and having gone to musical therapy myself, is the power of music to stir memories, especially for people with Alzheimer's. But I say this to your point, right, is like being able to remember things is so important. And if you don't take the time to like be present in a moment, whether that's for the sake of somebody else or for yourself, life will pass by, you know, and you'll come to the end of your life, whether that's tomorrow or in 50 years, and you'll see like, man, what did I experience life? But I feel like that's often what people talk about at funerals. They don't talk about the achievements this person did. They talk about the memories they had with that person while they were living. Remember that time when we had this, like with my grandpa, like we had, he loved, this is gonna be random, but he loved chicken feet. That was like his favorite snack. And what did we do at his funeral? We had chicken feet. Because it was something that we strongly associated memory-wise with this person, you know. And so if memories are held in such a high regard, especially at the end of your life, why not be intentional with making them now and being present with them now, when these are the moments you're going to look back on? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is that like memories are so rooted in the like impact that it leaves on people. And yeah, it's the importance of like knowing that it's rooted in being heard. I think that's the root of it. Like feeling like you're heard, feeling like you're listened to. Like that's what we all really need at the end of the day. And as long as we're able to feel that way, then that's essentially what creates a memorable experience.
Yeah.
I love these points.
What takeaways do you have, David?
Let's see, one takeaway that I'm thinking of is the importance of presence and being able to fully engage in what a moment has to offer. Because I think, once again, you know, I think it loops back to whether your experience is a traumatic one or it's a very difficult one to process, or if it's one that's very ecstatic or lively. I think being present in that allows you to remember that memory-wise and in what that has to offer. So if that's a learning process, a discovery process, if that's a challenge process type of thing. And actually makes me think about, this was one of the things that I wanted to think. We were talking about like navigating practical, or I had mentioned practical ways of like how we would like combat forgetfulness and such. But I think one thing that was worth also mentioning is like, depending on your learning style, that affects probably and influences the way that you retrieve, but also how you establish memories. You know, so I think given if you, Josh, are a person that loves like the reading, writing route, you know, and you're writing down all of these beautiful things, which I appreciate, like such a core way to, an intentional way to get to someone in depth and understand who they are and learn and love them the way that they should or best receive it, then I think you'd absolutely hold that as a memory that's core to you, because you know that that's the way you learn best and then the way you process best. So for me, I'm definitely like a visual learner. I love to have pictures and images, and definitely a lot faster than seeing a word of the color blue. You know, like if I can picture blue, it's just like ocean or pool or something, sky. But yeah, that's just kind of like my finalizing thoughts on takeaway. Yeah.
Love that. It's good. I love that we went to the practical. I think it's really good. I need that for myself. It's a good reminder. I think for me, sort of a last impression that I want to give. If there's anything that you want to take away beyond what Anthony and David said, is that kind of like I said this before, is that the enemy wants you to remember the bad things and forget the good things. But God wants you to remember the good things and not necessarily forget the bad things, but see the good in the bad. And so I wanted to read Psalm 77:11, which says, I will remember the deeds of the Lord, which I think really focuses in on how God worked for you in the past. And he's already worked in you in the past. He's already done good in the past. So why forget or be ignorant of the good he's doing today? And that's exactly that's a theme throughout Scripture, where God is saying, remember when I took you out of Egypt and out of slavery and brought you to this land. It's said multiple times because as a part of our inherent nature, we forget, right? It's part of our broken nature is forgetfulness, you know? And so I think that just brings up all the more reason to stand up to the calling of being intentional, being present, and trying to remember what God has done for you. So that's my last thought.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's this conversation in light of like everything that we talked about is so key to living the good life, even to even go super broad. As we round it off here, is like it's such a big part of like who we are. Like without our memories, like who are we? Like the memories almost form so much of our identity. Form so much of the reason we do things like travel is just to create memories, right? Like I think so oftentimes we forget how important they are, and just get so and this is like part of the conversation of like just going through the motions. That saying is like when we do go through the motions, it's almost like we are living through life, walking through this path without creating memories. I think the root of it is that, and if life could be more of this, I guess more so as John Mark Comer talks a lot about, is like slowing down and really being able to experience the sweetness of every moment in life that we're walking through, picking at the apples, right? Squeezing the lemons that life gives us, so to speak, is if that is what living life really is, then that's essentially what I'm after. It's like that is the good life. The good life isn't just to do all these things and not be able to remember what they were. But I think with that,
I have one last word.
End us off.
Isaiah 43:18-19 says, "Do not dwell on the former things, for I am doing a new thing today." And I think that's even, I guess, a last thing I'd say about the good life is it's not something that you have to wait for. Like it's something that you can start pursuing today.
I like that. On that note,
I'll pray for us.
Sure.
Gracious God, thank you for just the ability to talk with these awesome people just about you and just about making memories and remembering difficult things and processing through things and reframing them. And it's just such a great opportunity that we can remember the good things that have happened in our lives, and that we can just convey a message to people who are listening how to reframe, restructure, and re-experience maybe the good and the bad memories they have in their own lives. Just thank you for just the opportunity that we have to engage with each other and our own experiences in the life, and just that we can be a community for one another going into the future. We just thank you for this time and thank you for this day. Amen.
Amen. All right, and that's going to be the end of episode 9 of season 2.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys so much for watching. It's The Good Life, your practical guide to adulting. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss another video upload. We will see you guys in the next one.